The transport ship hung above the planet like a silver coin waiting to fall. Inside the metal belly of the vessel, Teo stood among 30 other cadets, all waiting for their turn to drop into the red jungle below. The planet was called Cadets Prime, and it had a simple reputation across the entire galaxy. It killed almost everyone who landed on it. Teo was human. He came from Earth, a planet so far away that most of the other cadets had never even heard of it. The Vrelians and Kethmir and Ceylon did not know much about humans because humans rarely left their home system. But Earth had finally joined the unified galactic military 5 years ago, and now human cadets were part of the training program just like everyone else. He checked his equipment one more time. His hands were steady and calm. The other cadets noticed this. The Vrelian next to him, a blue-skinned officer with 4 arms and clever eyes, looked at Teo with something like pity. "Your first drop?" she asked. "Yes," Teo said. His voice was quiet and honest. "Then you should know something," the Vrelian said. Her name was Haina, and she had survived 3 military campaigns already. Most humans do not come back from Cadets Prime. Most species do not come back from Cadets Prime. But humans, especially new humans like you, they come back in boxes. Teo looked at her and smiled a little. "I am not planning on coming back in a box." Haina did not smile back. She looked away, returning her focus to the checklist on her wrist device. She was here because she wanted to prove something. She was tired of following orders. She was tired of being just another Vrelian soldier in a military full of them. If she survived Cadets Prime alone, maybe they would finally take her seriously, or maybe she would die, and that would be fine too. The ship's communication system crackled to life. The voice of Commander Visthar echoed through the transport bay. She was a tall woman with scars on her face and gray in her black hair. She had seen wars. She had seen soldiers die. She had no patience for fear. "Attention, cadets," Commander Visthar said. "You are about to enter a survival trial on Cadets Prime. This is not a game. This is not a training exercise. This is a test of everything you are. You will have 7 days to survive on the surface. You will have minimal equipment. You will have no immediate rescue if you get into trouble. The extraction transport will come back in 7 days, no sooner. If you are still alive when we arrive, you will be considered a success. If you are dead, well, the planet will take care of your body." She paused and let that sink in. "The survival rate for this trial is 18%. That means if there are 30 of you down there, only about 5 or 6 will come back. The rest will become part of Cadets Prime. You are being paired with another cadet randomly. That cadet is your partner for the week. You will work together or you will die alone. These are your only 2 choices." The transport bay was very quiet after that. Teo looked at Haina. Haina looked back at him. They had been assigned as partners through a random computer selection. Now they would either work together to survive, or they would die together on a distant planet. "I have survived worse," Haina said to Teo, but she did not sound like she believed it. "I have not," Teo said, "but I learn fast." The ship began to move. Through the small windows, Teo could see the planet coming closer. Cadets Prime was not a pretty world. The sky was the color of rust. The land was covered in a jungle that looked less like vegetation and more like an infection spreading across the ground. Strange colors moved through the trees. Some things flew through the air that did not look like they should be able to fly at all. The other cadets were preparing themselves. The Vrelians were doing calculations on their wrist devices, trying to find the best survival strategy. The Kethmir were meditating, trying to find peace before death. The Ceylon collective was humming in perfect synchronized frequencies, their crystalline bodies reflecting the light from the control panels. Teo just looked out the window. A young Ceylon approached him. Their body was made of something that looked like clear crystal, with light moving inside them like blood. "You should be afraid," the Cylon said. Their voice sounded like wind chimes. "The data suggests you will not survive. Humans have no special adaptations for extreme environments. Your species has soft skin and no natural weapons. Why did you volunteer?" Teo thought about the question for a moment. "Because I wanted to know if I could," he said. The Cylon made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been the sound of a wind chime breaking in the breeze. They did not speak to Teo again after that. The transport ship slowed down. Below them, the red jungle opened up, and Teo could see the designated landing zone. It was a clearing surrounded by very tall trees. Beyond that, Teo could see nothing but darkness and movement. Things were moving in that jungle. He could see them even from so far away. They were large things, fast things. Haina came and stood next to him. "When we land," she said, "we have 2 minutes to grab our gear and get into the drop pod. After that, the automatic launch system will eject us into the jungle. There is no going back to the ship. Once the pod doors close, we are committed." "Okay," Teo said. "You should understand what that means," Haina continued. "It means we have to survive on our own. No help, no backup. For 7 days, we are on our own in hell." "I understand," Teo said. The ship touched down with a soft bump. The landing zone shook a little, and dust rose up from the ground outside. The alarm system sounded. Red lights flashed in the transport bay. This was the signal. They had 2 minutes. Teo and Haina ran to their assigned drop pod. They grabbed their gear. Teo had a small pack with water, basic food, a knife, a flashlight, and a small communication device that would only work if they somehow made it to high ground. Haina had the same equipment, plus she had a small medical kit and a thin wire for setting traps. They climbed into the pod. The door sealed behind them. Through a small reinforced window, Teo could see the jungle growing larger. The ground was getting closer. He could smell something strange through the air filtration system. Something like burned metal and rotting plants mixed together. "This is it," Haina said. Her voice was calm, but Teo could see her hands shaking a little as she gripped her equipment. "This is it," Teo agreed. The pod hit the ground hard. It bounced once and came to rest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the bottom door of the pod opened, and the red light of Kethis Prime filled the small space. The sound of the jungle was loud and strange. It was full of calls and screams from animals that Teo could not see. It was full of the sound of things moving through the undergrowth. Teo stepped out first. His boots touched the red earth of Kethis Prime. Above him, the rust-colored sky seemed to press down like a weight. The temperature was already making sweat form on his skin. The air tasted like metal and something sweet and something rotten all mixed together. Haina stepped out behind him. She looked at the jungle around them and then at Teo. 7 days, she said. 7 days, Teo repeated. In the distance, something that was very large began to move through the jungle. The ground shook a little with each step. Teo and Haina looked at each other. They both knew they should start moving. They both knew that staying in the clearing was a bad idea. They both grabbed their packs and ran toward the jungle. The transport ship rose into the sky behind them, pulling away, leaving them alone on a planet that did not want them. By the 3rd day on Kethis Prime, Haina was starting to understand something about humans that the military databases had never mentioned. They were stubborn in a way that seemed almost stupid, but the stupid part was working. On the first night, when the temperature dropped below freezing, Haina suggested they find shelter. She suggested they hide in the caves that they had spotted on the hillside. She suggested they build a fire and wait out the darkness. These were all standard military survival tactics. These were what every other species did. Teo suggested something different. "We keep moving," he said. "Moving keeps us warm. Standing still in the cold kills us. We keep our bodies active. We keep the blood flowing. We stay alive." Hana thought this was insane, but Teo was her partner, and she had promised to work with him. So they walked through the night. They moved up hills and down into valleys. They climbed over rocks and pushed through thick plants that tried to cut their skin. And Hana realized something strange. Tayo was right. Her body was warm. Her muscles were working. The movement was keeping her alive. By morning, when the sun rose and turned the sky from black to rust-colored, Hana was exhausted but alive. She also noticed something else. Teo had not complained once. Not about the cold. Not about the pain in his legs. Not about the cuts on his hands from the sharp plants. He had just kept moving. The food problem started on the second day. The military rations they brought were designed for different species. Some of them made Hana sick just by smelling them. Others were toxic to her Vrelian biology. And most of them were useless because they ran out of food on the second night. They had assumed they would find water and plants to eat, but everything on Kethis Prime seemed designed to be poisonous. Teo studied the problem in a way that impressed Hana despite herself. He did not panic. He did not follow the military handbook. He did not give up. Instead, he walked to the edge of a bioluminescent swamp and waded into the water. "What are you doing?" Hana called after him. "That water is acidic. Look at it." "I know," Teo said, "but there are things moving in it, things that have to be edible to something. Maybe we can eat them." He reached down into the glowing blue water and pulled something out. It was a creature that looked like a cross between a fish and an insect. Its body was covered in what looked like thick armor. Its eyes were too many. When it touched Teo's skin, the acid in the water began to burn him. He did not drop it. He did not scream. He brought it to shore and sat down. He took his knife and began to cut the creature apart. His hands were burning. His forearms were turning red. But his face showed nothing but concentration. "You are insane," Hana said, watching him work. "Maybe," Teo said, "but I am also hungry, and humans are just really good at being uncomfortable." He gutted the creature and found the meat inside. It was not as poisonous as the water. He cooked it with the small energy cell from his medical pack. It tasted like burned rubber and chemicals, but it had calories. It had energy. It could keep them alive. That night, Hana watched Teo sleep despite his burned arms. She watched the blisters form on his skin. She watched him breathe slowly and steadily despite what had to be serious pain. She realized something important. Humans were not stronger than other species. Humans were not faster or smarter or better at most things. But humans seemed to have something different. They seemed to have a capacity to accept suffering and keep moving forward anyway. On the fifth day, the predator found them. It came out of the jungle suddenly, moving fast, despite being the size of a ground transport vehicle. Its body was covered in chitinous armor. Its head had too many eyes, and all of them seemed to be looking directly at Teo and Hana. Its mouth opened, and they could see the serrated teeth inside. The teeth looked like the blades of 1,000 knives all stuck together. Hana immediately started planning an escape route. She looked for high ground. She looked for caves. She looked for anywhere they might be able to hide or climb to safety. Teo did something that made absolutely no sense. He ran directly at the creature. "Teo, no!" Hana tried to call after him, but it was too late. The human dropped low and tackled the creature's front leg. His small body was nothing compared to the massive predator, but his determination was absolute. He drove the creature toward the cliff edge where they had been standing just moments before. The predator tried to shake him off. It tried to grab him with its smaller front arms. But Teo was fast and desperate and completely committed to moving the creature toward that edge. Hana realized what he was trying to do. He was going to make the creature fall. The creature understood it too, but it was too late. Its back legs slipped on the loose rocks. Its massive body tipped forward. For one moment, the predator's eyes went wide with something that might have been fear or might have been surprise. Then it fell over the edge, tumbling down the mountainside with a sound like an avalanche. Teo grabbed Haina's hand and pulled her down as well. They rolled down the mountain together, bouncing off rocks, crashing through plants, feeling like they were falling apart with every impact. When they finally stopped, they were both bleeding and hurt and absolutely exhausted. Haina lay on her back and stared up at the rust-colored sky. She could barely breathe. Every part of her body hurt. "What?" she said slowly. "Are you?" Teo was also on his back, also staring at the sky. He was breathing hard. He was covered in new cuts. His burned arms were now also scraped and bleeding, but he was alive, and he was smiling. "Mostly stubborn," he said between breaths. "Humans are stubborn and stupid sometimes. We do not think things through. We just do them and hope they work out. It is a miracle we survived on Earth at all, actually." Haina did not know what to say to that. So she just lay there beside him for a while, listening to both of them breathe, listening to the strange sounds of the jungle around them, understanding that she had somehow been paired with the strangest creature in the military academy. Night came again. They found shelter in a cave that seemed abandoned. They sat close to each other for warmth. Haina realized that she was not thinking about escape anymore. She was not thinking about dying anymore. She was wondering what Teo would do next. She was wondering if maybe, just maybe, they were going to make it through this alive. 2 days left, 60 hours. They could do this. With Teo doing crazy things and her staying ready to adapt, they could survive anything. On the 6th day, they found the pit. It was not a big pit. It was maybe 3 meters deep and twice that across. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal but felt like stone. The bottom was dark and seemed to go down forever, even though Haina knew the pit could not be very deep at all. The strange thing about the pit was that it was making a sound, a whimpering sound, like something was hurt down there. Teo walked to the edge and looked down. "There is something alive down there," he said. Haina came over and looked down as well. At first, she could not see anything in the darkness. But then her eyes adjusted, and she saw a shape. It was small compared to the other creatures they had seen. It had a body covered in scales that were purple and iridescent, like oil on water. It had too many legs and not enough eyes. One of its back legs was twisted at an angle that meant it was broken. "It is a juvenile," Haina said. "A young version of the apex predators on this planet." "It is dying," Teo said. They stood at the edge of the pit and looked down at the wounded animal. Haina knew what the military handbook said about this situation. The handbook said that any injury to dangerous fauna was irrelevant to the mission. The handbook said to move on and find shelter. The handbook said that they should focus on their own survival and nothing else. Haina had read the handbook many times. She had memorized it. She had followed it for her entire military career, and she was tired of it. "We need to keep moving," she said anyway, because she was still a soldier, and part of her still believed in following orders. But Teo was already sitting down. He was taking off his pack. He was preparing his equipment. "What are you doing?" Haina asked. "Going down," Teo said. "You will be killed," Haina said. "That creature, even though it is young, even though it is wounded, it will still kill you. It has teeth and claws and instinct. You have nothing but stubbornness." "Maybe," Teo said. He took a piece of rope from his pack. He looked for something to tie it to. He found a large rock that was heavy enough. He wrapped the rope around the rock and threw it into the pit. Then he grabbed the rope and began to climb down into the darkness. Hana watched him go. She could not believe what she was seeing. She could not believe that someone would do this, but she did not try to stop him. She just watched. Teo reached the bottom of the pit. His feet touched the crystal ground. The juvenile creature saw him and hissed. It tried to attack, but its broken leg made it slow and clumsy. Teo did not run. He did not draw his knife or fight back. He simply sat down about 2 meters away from the creature and opened his pack. "I know you are scared," Teo said, speaking in soft tones that would not carry all the way up to where Hana was watching. "I know you are hurt and alone. I know this whole world is trying to kill you. I understand that feeling more than you might think." The creature hissed again and took a step toward him. Its movement was painful and slow because of the broken leg. Teo took some of his food rations and set them on the ground between them. He did not throw them. He did not force them toward the creature. He just left them there and waited. For almost an hour, nothing happened. The creature and the human simply looked at each other across a small distance. Above them, Hana watched and waited. The light was starting to change. The sun was moving lower. Soon it would be night, and the temperature would drop. But something changed. The creature's hissing became less aggressive. It became quieter. The creature limped forward, moving slowly because of its injury. It sniffed at the food. It did not eat it at first. It just smelled it. Then, with a movement that was almost gentle, it began to eat. Teo did not move. He just watched the creature eat his food and seemed satisfied with that. An hour later, Teo used the rope to climb back up out of the pit. Hana helped pull him over the edge. They collapsed together on the ground, exhausted from the effort. "That was the most insane thing I have ever seen," Hana said. "Probably," Teo agreed. "But now it will not attack us during the night. Now it knows we are not trying to hurt it. Now it might even help us if the predators come back." "How could a wounded juvenile creature help us?" Hana asked. The question was meant to be logical and practical. "I do not know," Teo said. "But I know that when I was scared and hurt on my first day here, having someone show kindness made a difference to me. I think it might be the same for this creature." They decided to camp near the pit that night. They made a small fire and sat close to it. They could hear the juvenile creature moving around at the bottom of the pit. It was no longer making sounds of pain. It was making sounds that were quieter, calmer. Hana found herself thinking about the creatures she had killed in her previous military missions. She found herself wondering if any of them had been scared or hurt. She found herself wondering if any of them would have preferred kindness instead of violence. In the morning, when they prepared to continue their journey, they found that the juvenile creature had somehow managed to climb out of the pit during the night. It was small enough to climb the walls that Teo could not climb. Now it followed them as they walked. It did not protect them. It was too small to fight anything dangerous. But it also did not attack them or draw the attention of the larger predators on the planet. Somehow its presence seemed to confuse the natural order of things. Hana realized that they had gained something on Kethis Prime that no other cadet had gained before. They had gained a companion. 1 day left until extraction. 24 hours until they would be picked up and taken back to the ship. 24 hours until they could leave this red planet behind. They walked together, the human, the Vrelian, and the purple juvenile creature with iridescent scales. And as the rust-colored sky began to turn orange with the setting sun, Hana found herself hoping that somehow, against all probability, they were actually going to make it. The extraction point was exactly where they had dropped. The same clearing, the same tall trees, the same red earth. Teo and Hana stood at the edge of the clearing at noon on the 7th day. Behind them, the juvenile Kethis Prime creature stood quietly, its purple scales catching the light and making it shimmer. They had made it. 7 days of survival. 7 days of impossible situations turned into victories through stubbornness and luck and something that felt like friendship. Haina's communication device began to beep. The extraction transport was in orbit. It would be descending soon. They had done it. They had actually done it. When they see the creature, Haina said, they will not allow it on the ship. Protocol does not permit unknown fauna to be transported. Teo looked at the juvenile creature. It was looking back at him. Its many eyes were focused and intelligent. It had survived the pit with a broken leg. It had learned to trust a human instead of attack. It had made the choice to follow them across an impossible planet. Then we will have to make them understand, Teo said. The transport descended through the rust-colored sky like a silver raindrop falling upward. It was not as large as the dropship had been, but it was big enough. It had room for soldiers and equipment and things that needed to be brought back to the orbital station. The landing was gentle. The dust rose up from the ground. The cargo door at the back of the transport opened, and a team of soldiers came out with weapons drawn. They looked around the clearing. They looked for threats. What they found confused them: a human cadet, a Vrelian officer, and something that definitely was not supposed to be here. The squad leader was a female Kethmir with crystalline skin that reflected the light. Her name was Yuki, and she had orders to recover all surviving cadets from the extraction point. She did not have orders about creatures. "Cadets," Yuki said, "you are cleared to board. Medical team is standing by." Teo did not move. Haina did not move either. "We are not leaving without our companion," Teo said. Yuki blinked. Her crystalline face did not show expression, but her body language changed slightly. She was confused. "That is not a cadet," Yuki said. "No," Teo agreed. "But it is a survivor. It has proven its intelligence and its ability to adapt to circumstances. It has earned the right to leave this planet." One of the soldiers raised his weapon. He was a young Vrelian, and he looked nervous. He had probably never seen a Class-7 Predator juvenile before, even a wounded one. "Stand down," Yuki commanded. "Nobody fires without my orders." She stepped forward and looked at the juvenile creature more carefully. She was a scientist as well as a soldier. She understood that things on Kethis Prime were often not what they seemed. She understood that survival here meant adaptation and unexpected solutions. "How long has this creature been following you?" Yuki asked. "Since yesterday," Haina said. She explained the situation. She explained the pit. She explained how Teo had descended despite the danger. She explained how the creature had accepted kindness instead of choosing violence. Yuki listened carefully. When Haina finished, Yuki made a decision. "Get the containment field," she told her team. "The portable one. We will bring the creature back in isolation. If it causes any problems, we will eject it into space. But for now, we observe." The soldiers scrambled to retrieve equipment. Minutes later, a portable containment field had been set up. It was a small, clear box about 2 meters on each side, with environmental controls. The juvenile creature walked into it without hesitation. It seemed to trust that Teo and Haina were not trying to hurt it. The transport rose into the sky. From the window, Teo watched Kethis Prime fall away below them. The red jungle, the rust-colored sky, the dangerous landscape that had nearly killed him. But it had not killed him. It had made him stronger. It had shown him something about himself. His skin was burned from the acidic water and the sun exposure. The burns had turned into a tan, the color of the red earth, a mark of the planet, a mark that said he had survived here. Inside the medical bay of the orbital station, the military doctors examined Teo and Haina. They removed the burns with medical technology. They treated the cuts and broken bones. They checked their blood for toxins and parasites. Haina was declared fit for duty. Teo was declared fit as well, though his burns would take longer to heal completely. But something strange happened. The burn on Teo's skin did not completely disappear. The medical technology could heal the damage, but it could not remove the color that the Kethis Prime sun had burned into his skin. By the time the healing was complete, Teo had a permanent tan. It was the color of red earth and dried blood. It covered his arms and his face and his chest, wherever the sun had touched him the most. The doctors tried to explain it. Some kind of permanent change in the pigmentation of his skin. Some kind of chemical reaction between his human biology and the Kethis Prime environment. They could not remove it without damaging the new skin underneath, so they left it. Teo looked in the mirror and saw something that had changed. He was not just a human from Earth anymore. He was someone who had survived a place where almost everyone died. He was someone who had the mark of Kethis Prime on him, and he would carry that mark for the rest of his life. The containment field holding the juvenile creature was moved to a research facility. Scientists from multiple species came to study it. The creature showed remarkable intelligence. It could solve puzzles. It could recognize patterns. It seemed to understand that Teo was special to it in some way, because it would become calm whenever he was nearby. Military command did not know what to do with Teo. He had broken protocol by bringing the creature back, but he had also achieved what was theoretically impossible. He had survived Kethis Prime. Haina had survived as well, and she had filled her report with praise for Teo's unconventional methods. Promotion would have been normal. Praise and advancement in rank and assignment to better positions. But Teo did not want that. He did not want to go back to comfortable bases and standard military duty. He wanted something else, something more. He requested a meeting with Commander Visthar. She met with him in her office, and he told her what he wanted. He wanted to establish a research program. He wanted to study humans and their unique ability to adapt to extreme environments. He wanted to understand why they seemed to excel when everything was against them. And he wanted the juvenile creature to be part of that research. He wanted it to be treated as a research partner, not a test subject. Commander Visithar listened to everything he said. When he finished, she smiled for the first time since he had met her. "You have learned the most important lesson," she said. "Survival is not about being the strongest or the fastest. It is about refusing to accept that something is impossible. That is what makes humans valuable to the galaxy." She approved his request. The interrogation room was sterile white. It was the complete opposite of the red jungle they had left behind. Everything was clean and organized and cold. Teo sat at a table across from several scientists and military officers. They asked him questions over and over again. How did you form a connection with the creature? He did not form a connection. He just respected it and showed it that respect through action. How did you know the creature would not attack? He did not know. He just believed that most creatures, when faced with kindness, will choose kindness instead of violence. It was a theory he had never tested before Kethis Prime, but it seemed to be true. Why did you break protocol and bring the creature back? Because nobody else was going to save it, and it deserved to be saved. The questions continued for hours. Scientists wanted to understand the biology. Military officers wanted to understand the tactical advantage. Commanders wanted to understand why a human cadet had accomplished something that violated every rule in the survival manual. The most difficult question came from a Vrelian general named Takvor. He was old and had scars on his forearms from battles across the galaxy. His eyes were cold and calculating. "You made a choice," Takvor said, "between your own survival and the survival of another species. You chose to risk your life for a creature you had just met. Vrelians do not make that choice. Kethmir do not make that choice. Seelan do not make that choice. Why do humans make that choice?" Teo thought about the question carefully. It was a fair question. It deserved a real answer. "On Earth," Teo said, "humans have survived by helping each other. We are not the strongest species on our planet. We are not the fastest or the most dangerous, but we helped each other. We took care of each other. We survived together instead of surviving alone. Maybe that is why I could not leave the creature in the pit. Because humans are designed to help. It is in our nature." Takvor did not respond. He just nodded slowly and made a note on his wrist device. In a separate research facility, Haina was also being questioned. She gave them a detailed report of everything that happened. She explained Teo's methods. She explained his thinking. But more importantly, she told them about something they had not expected. "He was not trying to be a hero," Haina said. "He was not trying to break records or prove something to the military. He was just trying to survive. And in trying to survive, he discovered that the best way to survive was to help others survive too. It was not strategy, it was instinct." The interrogations lasted for 3 days. By the end, the military and scientific community had more questions than answers. They did not understand humans. They did not understand why Teo had made the choices he made. They did not understand why a species would risk itself for another species. Commander Visthar listened to all the reports. She read all the statements. She watched the video footage of the rescue and the survival. And she made a decision that would surprise many people. She approved Teo's request to establish a research program. The facility was to be built on Kethis Prime itself. It would be a place to study human adaptation to extreme environments. It would be a place to study interspecies cooperation. It would be a place where Teo and Haina and the juvenile creature could work together to understand something that the galaxy had never understood before. The setup took 6 months. Materials were brought down from orbit. A base was constructed in a valley that was relatively safe. Solar panels were installed to provide power. Laboratories were built where research could be conducted. Living quarters were established where the researchers could live and work on the surface of the planet. Teo insisted that the juvenile creature have a specific space designed for its needs. It needed higher temperatures than humans required. It needed specific food. It needed room to move and exercise. The creature, which they had started calling Kel, seemed to understand that it was being cared for. It seemed to trust that it was safe. The first weeks of the research program involved establishing baseline data. They studied how humans and Vrelians and other species responded to the stress of living on Kethis Prime. They studied how their bodies adapted to the harsh environment. They studied how humans seemed to handle pain differently than other species. One day, during a research session, one of the scientists asked Teo a simple question. "Why do you still have the tan?" the scientist asked. "The medical technology should have removed it completely. Why did you keep it?" Teo looked at his arms. The red earth color was still there, still visible, still marking him as someone who had survived Kethis Prime. "Because I want to remember," he said. "Because this mark says that I survived here. Because I want to carry this planet with me even when I am not here. It reminds me of what I learned. It reminds me that I can survive anything if I am willing to accept being uncomfortable." Haina was working in another section of the facility. She had chosen to stay on Kethis Prime with Teo instead of returning to comfortable military duty. She had discovered that she liked research more than she liked following orders. She liked asking questions more than she liked accepting answers. She had also discovered something else. She had discovered friendship. She had discovered that working with Teo to solve problems was more satisfying than working alone to climb military ranks. She had discovered that sometimes the best survival strategy was to admit that you could not survive alone. In the restricted research wing, Kel was being studied by teams of biologists. They discovered that the creature had an intelligence level comparable to Earth dolphins or primates. It could communicate using a series of sounds and body movements. It could learn new tasks. It could form attachments to other creatures, not just its own kind. But the most remarkable discovery came when they observed Kel's behavior toward Teo. The creature responded to Teo in ways that it responded to no other human. It seemed to recognize him. It seemed to remember him. It seemed to understand that Teo was special. The scientists realized something important. Kel had made a choice on that red planet. It had chosen to trust Teo, despite every instinct telling it to attack. That choice had saved both of them. That choice had led to this research facility. That choice had led to understanding. The military command structure began to understand what Teo had discovered. They began to understand that humans were valuable not because they were strong, but because they refused to accept defeat. They refused to accept that something was impossible. They refused to leave others behind. 6 months after the research facility was established, a representative from the Unified Galactic Council came to visit. She was a tall being made of pure energy, contained in a specialized suit that allowed her to exist in normal space. Her name was impossible to pronounce in any human language, but Teo's people called her the Observer. She toured the facility. She met with Teo and Haina. She observed Kel in its research chamber. At the end of the tour, she asked to speak with Teo privately. In a quiet chamber where only the two of them could speak, the Observer asked him a question. "Why do you believe humans belong in the galactic community?" she asked. "You are young. You are inexperienced. You have only just joined us. Why should we accept you as equals?" Teo thought about the question. He thought about Kethis Prime. He thought about the pit. He thought about Kel. He thought about Haina. He thought about everything he had learned. "Because we are willing to fail," he said. "Because we are willing to be uncomfortable. Because we are willing to help others even when it is hard. And because," he smiled slightly, "we are stubborn enough to believe that we can change things." The Observer made a sound that might have been laughter. She returned to her vessel, and the message she carried back to the Unified Galactic Council was clear. Humanity, strange and stubborn and impossible as they were, had something valuable to offer the galaxy.